He threw her out with a black bag and $10. No warning, no conversation, just leave. And she did, because after 6 years with that man, she had forgotten that she had a choice. Now I need you to pay very close attention to what happens next. Because the same woman he threw out like yesterday's newspaper, she's about to find something. Something that was hers long before she ever met him. And when she does, he's going to feel it. Drop one word in the comments before we go further. Karma or destiny. Because this story is both. The bag was black. That detail stayed with Yuna longer than it probably should have. 6 years of her life, and he had put it all in a single black bag and left it outside the gate like it was rubbish day. Her university certificates, her one good perfume, the small framed photograph of the only place she had ever felt she belonged, which she could not even remember clearly, but had carried with her since childhood. All of it. Black bag. Outside the gate. Do not come back. Kwame had not even done it himself. He had told the gateman. That was the part that broke something in Yuna that did not break loudly. Not a crash, not a scream, just a quiet internal collapse, the way a wall gives way slowly before it falls. He had not even thought she was worth the conversation. She stood on the street in flat shoes she had bought herself 2 Christmases ago, because Kwame believed in managing household expenses, and she was the household. And she looked left and looked right, and the city looked back at her with the complete indifference of a place that does not know your name. She had given 6 years to that man. 6 years of early mornings and late nights, and swallowed arguments and careful, constant, exhausting management of his comfort, his ego, his public image. She had ironed his shirts and entertained his clients and smiled at his mother's table every Sunday, and made herself smaller, quieter, less, over and over and over, until she was not sure how much of her original self remained. He had told her she was difficult, told her she was ungrateful, told her she was lucky he stayed. She had believed him. That was the part she could not yet look at directly. She had believed every word. She walked for 35 minutes with the black bag on her shoulder and checked into a guest house that charged by the night. She had $10. She had no job. She had a biochemistry degree she had not used since Kwame told her in year 2 of their marriage that a wife in her position did not need to work, that working made it look like he could not provide, that she was embarrassing him. She had a degree she had not touched in 6 years and hands that knew how to make a home from nothing. She sat on the edge of the guest house bed and opened her phone. Sales executive. Must have own vehicle. Personal assistant. Current employer reference required. Customer service. Minimum 2 years recent experience. She kept scrolling. At the bottom of the page, nearly off the screen, she found it. Vacancy. Live-in animal care specialist. Private residence. Modern estate. Candidate must be gentle, patient, and genuinely fond of animals. Accommodation and meals provided. Competitive salary. Discretion required. Yuna read it 4 times. She had a degree in biochemistry. She had managed a household budget, run a domestic operation, handled suppliers and schedules and events without a single official title or salary. And she was sitting here considering applying to walk someone's dog. She almost laughed. Then she looked at the $10 and the nightly rate of the guest house and pressed apply before her dignity could stop her. The response came in 50 minutes. Come tomorrow, 8 a.m. Ask for Mrs. Park at the gate. She searched the address. The aerial view showed a compound with its own internal road. She ironed her good blouse, set her alarm for 5:30, and lay down on the guest house mattress and stared at the ceiling and told herself, one door. You just need one door. She did not know the door was going to change everything. She did not know that the man who owned that compound had been looking for someone for 27 years, and that the dog had been waiting just as long. If you have ever applied for something that felt beneath you because you had no other choice, like this video right now, because this story is for you, and is only just starting. The gate was black iron and tall enough to make statement. No roost, no beating. The kind of gate that got repainted every season, not out of necessity, but out of principle. Yuna stood in front of it with her good blouse and her flat shoes and pressed the intercom and said her name, and the gate opened without a word. She walked up the driveway and stopped. It was not a house. It was the kind of building you saw in architecture magazines in waiting rooms and assumed was a concept, not a real place where someone actually ate breakfast and slept and walked around in socks. Clean modern lines, dark stone and glass, a water feature running along the entrance. Landscaping designed by someone who understood that the most expensive thing a garden can communicate is effortlessness. Everything was quiet, not empty quiet, full quiet, the quiet of absolute control. Mrs. Park met her at the entrance. Korean woman, 50s, the manner of someone who had worked here long enough to stop being impressed by any of it. You are Yuna? Yes, ma. Kwame. Through a corridor of polished floors and high ceilings and art she could not name the value of, and out through a side entrance into a garden that was larger than her former neighborhood. And there, in the shade on a blanket in the middle of that garden, was the dog. A full-grown Cane Corso. Black, broad-chested. The face of an animal that had seen things and made decisions about people based on what it had seen. He was lying with his head on his paws, looking at her, with the slow, deliberate assessment of a creature that did not extend trust easily or quickly. His name is Olga, Mrs. Park said. The boss named him. What happened to the person before me? Yuna asked. He lasted 4 days. And before that, 3 days. Yuna crouched down on the grass. She did not reach for the dog. She did not make sounds or gestures. She simply came down to his level and stayed there and waited the way you wait when you understand that the other person gets to decide. Olga looked at her. A long, thorough, completely unrushed look. Then he put his head back down on his paws. Facing her, Mrs. Park made a sound she seemed surprised by. He does not do that, she said. I know, Yuna said. I will take the job. She moved in that afternoon. Her room was near the garden. Clean, simple, its own bathroom. 3 times the size of the guest house. 20 times better than the room she had shared with Kwame, where she had learned to sleep without moving, without taking up space, without existing too loudly. She did not see the boss that day, or the next 4. She learned him the way you learn weather, through what it does to everything around it. Mrs. Park called him Kongjun. The other staff said his name in a lower register than everything else they said, the way you speak inside a place of significance. The security rotation happened in silence. He was in the house. She felt the shape of him without seeing his face. What she saw instead, his dog had not been properly walked in weeks. Olga was restless and slightly underweight and had been fed inconsistently, which was hard on large breeds. But he had clearly been loved once and remembered it. You could see it in the way he leaned into certain tones of voice, responded to the particular body language of someone sitting down beside him without wanting anything. He had loved someone, and that someone was gone. Yuna understood that completely. She fixed his schedule on day 1. Walk at 6, 12, and 5. Food weighed and timed. Every evening after dinner, she sat with him in the garden and simply existed the way she had not been allowed to simply exist in a long time. On the 6th day, Olga put his head in her lap. She looked up at the darkening sky and let out a breath that had been inside her for 6 years. She did not know she was being watched from the second-floor window. He watched for a long time. On the 8th day, she found something on the shelf in the main corridor. A photograph, old and slightly faded. 2 children in sunlight, a boy and a very small girl. The boy's arm around her with the fierceness of someone who intended to keep something safe. And on the little girl's left forearm, a birthmark, the exact shape and position of the one on Yuna's own arm. She walked past it twice a day, and every time something old and nameless shifted in her chest. She said nothing, but she started paying attention. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because this story is building to something that is going to absolutely break you in the best way. You do not want to miss the next part. She met him on the 12th day. She had built him in her mind as someone cold and transactional, the kind of man who owned beautiful things without attaching to them. Kwame had been like that with her in year one. She knew the type. Kong Jun was not that. He was tall, late 30s, complexion that sat between Korean and something richer, warm brown undertones beneath lighter skin, the particular face of someone whose blood carried more than one story. Sharp Korean features, the jaw, the eyes, softened by something broader, warmer. He wore dark clothes without trying, moved through rooms with the ease of a man who had long ago stopped apologizing for taking up space. He was not cold. He was simply precise, a man who had decided, somewhere along the way, not to spend energy on anything that was not worth the cost. She met him coming out of the garden after the morning walk. He was coming down the corridor. They arrived at the same door at the same time. He looked at her, then at Olga, walking calmly at her left heel without a lead. He had not done that for anyone, not for a long time. "You are the one," Kong Jun said. "I am Yuna. He likes you. He is a good dog. He just needed consistency." Kong Jun looked at her for a moment in that precise way of his. Then he nodded and walked past. That was the entire conversation. Over the following weeks it stayed like that, brief, professional, functional. She learned his patterns. He left early and came back late or not at all. When he was home, he sat in the garden in the chair near the east corner, doing nothing visible, which she recognized as the rest of a person whose mind could not fully switch off. She left him alone. She was very good at leaving people alone. But she noticed things. The photograph in the corridor. She had looked at it properly now. The little girl, maybe 3 or 4, warm, deep brown skin, natural hair, a wide squinting smile. The birthmark on her left forearm, identical to hers. A child's locket on the shelf near the garden entrance, tarnished silver, engraved on the back with a name she had leaned close enough to read. Her name, Yuna. She stood in the corridor for a long time. Then she went and sat in the garden and tried to remember. She remembered almost nothing before age 7. There had been an accident, a fire. She had been found, and a family had taken her in. Kind people, not her people, and she had always known the difference, even as a child, had carried that knowledge like a stone in her chest her entire life. She had a birthmark on her left forearm. She could not remember her original family name. She waited. She did not know what she was waiting for. But for the first time in a very long time, she felt that something was moving toward her rather than away. 3 days later, Olga dug something up from beneath the rose bush in the east corner of the garden. He carried it to her and dropped it at her feet. A small carved wooden bird, painted red, the paint mostly gone. She turned it over. Carved into the base in a child's uneven letters, YUN and KJ. She sat down on the grass, right there, because she had owned a red bird once. She had no memory of it, but she knew it the way you know things that live below memory, below everything. Drop a comment right now. Do you believe in signs? Because this story is full of them, and the biggest one is still coming. Like the video, so more people find this story. 5 weeks in, midday walk, 2 blocks from the compound. Yuna. She stopped walking. Her body responded before her mind could. Shoulders pulling in, chin dropping, the old familiar shrinking. 5 weeks of slowly and carefully unlearning it, and one word from his mouth brought it back in a second. That was the thing about 6 years of conditioning. It did not wait for permission to return. Kwame was standing on the pavement. He looked diminished somehow, not physically, but in the way that people look when the story they have been telling about themselves has stopped being convincing. His suit needed pressing. His eyes were doing the calculation she recognized, moving over her, pricing things, deciding what leverage was available. "I have been looking for you," he said. "I'm not lost," Yuna said. Her own voice surprised her. Steady, quiet, not shaking. "Come home, Yuna. This is embarrassing. You are a whole woman walking someone's dog on the road." "I have a job." "You have a job." He said it the way you say something that does not deserve to be a sentence. Yuna, you have a degree. You cannot be out here." "Ex-wife," she said, "and I am working. Please move." He stepped forward. His expression shifted into the one she knew, concern-shaped cruelty, the one he wore when he wanted to manage her without touching her. "You have no one out here. No family, no money, nothing. You need to stop being stubborn and—" He reached for her arm. What happened next was very fast and completely calm. A hand landed on Kwame's shoulder from behind. Large, unhurried. The hand of a man who did not need to grip hard to communicate everything necessary. Kwame turned. Kong Jun was standing there. He had come from the direction of the compound, silent, no warning. Dark clothes, the stillness in his face completely undisturbed. He looked at Kwame the way you look at a minor logistical problem you are about to resolve efficiently. He was not angry. Anger would have been something Kwame could work with. This was nothing Kwame could work with. "Is there a difficulty?" Kong Jun said, quiet as a decision already made. Kwame's mouth opened. Nothing usable came out. "She is working," Kong Jun said. "This is her working hours. Any personal business waits until she is not working." He removed his hand from Kwame's shoulder. He looked at Yuna. "Continue." He walked back toward the compound. Yuna and Oga continued the walk. Kwame stood on the pavement and watched them go. He did not know the name of the man who had just dismissed him like a footnote. He was about to find out. Kong Jun ran a background check on Kwame within 2 hours. What he found in that file was not about Kwame at all. It was a name, an old case reference, a fire report from 27 years ago, and a child listed as unaccounted for. He sat very still in his office for a long time. Then he picked up the locket from the shelf and held it in his hand and looked at the name engraved on the back. "I need you to subscribe right now. Right now. Because what happens in the next scene is why this entire story exists, and you cannot miss it. Subscribe and stay with me." She knocked on his office door that evening. She had the card Red Bird in one hand, and for the first time, she had taken the locket from the shelf and carried it with her. She knocked. He said, "Come in." She crossed to his desk and placed both objects on the surface between them without speaking. Kong Jun looked at them. Something happened to his face. Enormous and slow-moving, the way large things move, not fast, but with complete inevitability. He looked up at her. "Where did Oga find the bird?" "East Garden, under the rose bush." He picked up the locket, turned it, read the engraving with his thumb. His hand was not steady. "Yuna," he said. Her full name in his voice sounded like something being returned to its rightful owner. "That is my name," she said. He stood from behind his desk. He was looking at her the way you look at something you've been trying to find for so long that finding it does not feel like relief immediately. It feels like the world tilting onto the axis it was always supposed to be on. "Your left arm," he said. She pushed up her sleeve. The birthmark, small, irregular, the shape of nothing particular. He looked at it. Then he rolled up his own right sleeve. On the inside of his forearm, old scarring barely visible, the same irregular outline. Not a birthmark, a burn scar from the fire. He had been 10 years old, and he had gone back in, and he had searched, and he had not found her, and he had lived inside that failure for 27 years. "I went back in," he said, not as an explanation, as a confession he had been carrying a very long time. "I know," Yuna said. She did not know how she knew. She just knew. He sat down on the edge of his desk. The composure of a man for whom composure was both armor and identity came apart quietly, the way expensive things break, without noise, without drama, completely. Oga crossed the room and put his chin on Kong Jun's knee. Kong Jun looked at the dog, then at Yuna. Our mother named him, he said. We had a dog when we were small. She named everything, every plant, every animal. His voice stopped briefly. I got him because he looked like the one she loved. I was not going to tell anyone that. Oga, Yuna said softly. He looked at her. She called it Oga, she said. I do not remember how I know that. You were 3, he said. You were there when she named him. The stone in Yuna's chest, the one she had carried her whole life, the weight of a belonging she could never locate, dissolved completely. They sat in the gold-lit office, the two of them and the dog, while 27 years rearranged themselves into a shape that finally made sense. He called his lawyer at 11 that same night. Find everything. The properties, the shares, everything their parents left. She is here. She is alive. Find everything and bring it to me by the end of the week. The lawyer called back 2 days later. He said, Kong Jun, you need to sit down before I tell you what she owns. If this story is hitting you somewhere deep, share it with one person right now. One person who needs to be reminded that what was taken from you has not disappeared. It is waiting. Like and share and let us keep going because the next part is where everything flips. 3 weeks. That was how long the lawyers took. 3 weeks during which Yuna moved through the compound in a state that was not quite real, walking Oga, eating in the kitchen, learning her brother in the careful, unhurried way you learn someone when there's 27 years to recover and neither of you wants to rush it. They talked in the evenings, not about the big things at first, about small things. Food their mother used to make. Yuna did not remember the taste, but she remembered the smell. Something deep and layered that she had spent her whole adult life trying to recreate in other people's kitchens. The way their father hummed when he thought no one was listening. The garden of the old house. Rose bushes in the east corner. Kong Jun had replanted them here the year he moved in. He had not known why. It had just felt like the right thing. The lawyers arrived on a Thursday with 4 folders and the energy of people who had been sitting on significant news and were relieved to finally deliver it. Properties. 4 of them across 3 cities. A land title registered in a family name Yuna had not heard spoken since she was 3 years old, but which landed in her chest like something that had always been true. Investment accounts compounding quietly for 3 decades. And at the bottom of the 4th folder, share certificates. A technology company. Their father had been a co-founder. The shares had been held in trust. Half for the son, half for the daughter. 50% founding shares in one of the most prominent tech firms in the region. Held in trust. For Yuna. For 30 years. She looked at the certificate for a long time. She thought about Kwame telling her she had nothing. She thought about the black bag outside the gate. She thought about $10 and a guest house mattress and a job listing that had not made any sense in a dog that chose her before the world knew her name. She looked at Kong Jun. He's going to apply to the company, she said. Not a question. She knew Kwame. She knew the way he moved toward power without checking whose it was first. Kong Jun looked at her with those precise eyes. There is a senior management position opening next month. A silence. Good, Yuna said. She picked up the share certificate and held it the way you hold something that was always yours. She walked into the company for the first time on a Tuesday morning. The receptionist offered her a visitor badge. Kong Jun, walking in beside her, said she does not need a visitor badge. This is her building. The receptionist looked between them and back at Yuna and said nothing more. Stay right there. Do not move, because the next scene is the one you have been waiting for since the very first line of this video. Like and subscribe if you want to see it right now. The boardroom was on the 14th floor, floor-to-ceiling glass. The city spread out below like it belonged to whoever was sitting at the head of the table. Yuna arrived first. She sat at the head of the table, deep burgundy suit, her natural hair out, uncompromised. Not a single concession made to anyone's preference for how much of herself she should show. She had bought the suit herself. She had spent 0 seconds wondering whether Kwame would find it too much. Her EA sat to her right, legal team to her left. Two of Kong Jun's people near the door, quiet and still in a way that communicates everything without requiring a single word. On the wall behind her, the founding share certificate, framed, displayed because some things should be visible. This was one of them. The candidates came in one at a time. Kwame was fourth. He walked in the way he always walked into rooms he considered his. Phone in hand, shoulders back, the studied casualness of a man performing confidence for an audience he assumes is impressed. He sat. He adjusted his jacket. He looked up from his phone. He looked at Yuna. The color left his face in sections. Not all at once. Floor by floor. Like a building losing power from the top down. Yuna looked at him the way Kong Jun had looked at him on the street. Not angry. Not triumphant. Not anything he could grab onto or argue with. Settled. The look of a woman who had located her coordinates in the world and was no longer movable. "Mr. Kwame," she said, "thank you for coming in." His mouth opened. What came out was not a word. "We have reviewed your CV," she said. "I have looked at it personally." "Yuna," he said. "Ms. Yuna," she said. "Com" as a title on a door. He looked at the legal team. The men near the door. The EA taking focused, unsurprised notes. The name on the folder in front of her. The certificate on the wall behind her. He assembled it slowly. The way you put together something when your hands are shaking. "This is you own the company," she said. "Yes, jointly with my brother." You do not have a..." "I have a brother," she said. "I had him before I had you. I just did not know it yet." A silence, so complete the city below seemed to pause. Kwame's jaw moved without producing language. The architecture of his ego, which was the primary load-bearing structure of his entire personality, was failing visibly. You could watch it happen in real time. "The position," Yuna said, picking up her pen with the unhurried ease of a woman with all the time in the world, "is senior management. The expectations are high. The culture here is built on accountability, respect, and the understanding that every person on this team carries their own weight." She paused. "I hope you understand why that last part is particularly relevant to your application." Kwame sat in his ex-wife's boardroom, his career in her hands, his future in her decision. The version of the story he had been telling himself, the one where he was the one who had done well and she was the one who had not gone, completely and permanently gone, and she was not even angry at him. That was the most devastating part, because anger would have meant he still mattered enough to her to feel something. He stood up. He could not complete the interview. His ego could produce many things, but it could not produce the specific quality of humility required to sit in this chair and answer questions about his 5-year plan from the woman he had put in a black bag outside a gate. He walked to the door. "Mr. Kwame," Eunice said. He stopped. "The position will be reposted. If you would like to reapply when you are ready, the process is the same for everyone." He left without turning around. The lift doors closed. Yuna wrote one word across the top of his CV. "Withdrew." Then she turned to the next candidate and gave them her complete and undivided attention. His side woman, the one for whom Yuna had apparently been insufficient, had left him 6 months after Yuna walked out. Cleaned out the account he had set up in her name. Sent one message, found better. He had told no one. He was currently in a 1-bedroom apartment in a part of town he would not previously have admitted knowing the name of. Yuna did not look for this information. It found her the way information finds the people it belongs to. She noted it. She said nothing. Some things are already complete without a response. Comment below right now. What is the word for watching someone's ego collapse in real time? I need the right word for what just happened in that boardroom. Tell me. And if you're not subscribed yet, then what are you doing? Subscribe right now. There was one more thing. 6 years of it. 6 years of family gatherings and lowered voices and unsolicited advice from well-meaning people who did not know the full picture. 6 years of Kwame's cruelty that came dressed as disappointment. The sighs, the silences, the particular way he said her name when the subject came up, like she was a product that had not delivered on its specifications. She had been to 3 doctors. In the first year, all 3 said the same thing. She was healthy. There was no medical reason she could not carry a child. The decision, if one was being made, was entirely personal. And Yuna had made a personal decision. She had watched Kwame for 1 year. Watched the way he handled money that was not his. The way he spoke to people who could not answer back. The way he moved through the home she maintained. Through her work, her effort, her entire invisible labor, as though it were maintained by some neutral force that had nothing to do with her. She had thought, I will not bring a child into this. She had not said it to anyone. She had accepted the pity and absorbed the cruelty and allowed the world to believe what it believed, because the truth required a safety she did not have inside those walls. She told Kang Jun one evening in the garden. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, You protected them. They do not exist, she said. You still protected them, he said. That is what a mother does before the child even arrives. Yuna sat with that. I want children, she said quietly. One day, on my terms, with someone I choose. Yes, Kang Jun said, like it required no further discussion. Because it did not. Olga put his head in her lap. She was not broken. She had never been broken. She had been precise, in the only way available to her at the time, about the only people she could still protect. She was 33 years old. She owned a tech company. She had a brother who had walked back in a fire for her when he was 10 years old. She had a dog who had chosen her before the world caught up. And she had the rest of her life entirely, completely, irrevocably hers, to fill with only what she chose. Kwame got a job eventually, smaller than he was used to, in an office where no one knew the name of his ex-wife or the 14th floor boardroom or the burgundy suit. He told people she had moved abroad. The side woman never came back. Some things, once gone, make no effort to return. Yuna did not think about it much, not from anger, not even from forgiveness, simply because she had finished allocating space to things that did not belong to her future. Kwame was in her past. He was welcome to stay there. She thought instead about mornings, about Olga's 6 o'clock walk and the particular quality of early light in the East Garden, about dinners with Kang Jun where they were still, even now, learning each other, 2 people building slowly and without pressure the family that was always theirs and had simply been interrupted, about the children she would have, not when, not with whom, just the quiet certainty of them. About a job listing at the bottom of a page that had not made any sense. Vacancy, live-in animal care specialist. Discretion required. She had thought it was desperation. It was destiny, and the dog had known before any of them. Someone in your life right now is counting on you staying small. They are counting on you believing that you have nothing, that the life they decided for you is the only one available. That the door you are standing in front of is too small for someone like you. They are wrong. Yuna did not walk into that compound knowing who she was. She walked in because she had $10 in a blouse she had ironed herself and exactly nowhere else to be. She just needed one door, and the dog picked her before the world caught up. Your door is open right now, even if it looks like a step down, even if it looks like starting over. Even if it looks nothing like what you planned. Walk through it. Drop a comment and tell me, what was the door you almost did not walk through? I am reading every single one. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. What is yours can find you, even after 27 years, even the garden, even through a dog who knew first.